This is News 8 Morning Extra.
So if you're divorced or maybe going through divorce, co-parenting is not an easy task. But just because the marriage is over doesn't mean you can't be civil about it. Rina Patel is a psychologist and an author. She joins us live this morning to share some co-parenting advice. Rina, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I mean, the healthier the breakup, the healthier it is for everyone, especially the little ones.
Absolutely. The reality is exactly what you said.
Yeah.
Sometimes in the beginning it's hard to be civil, it's hard to be face to face, but really looking at the child, and there's a lot of research out there that their overall wellness, mental health specifically, will go a long way if you really work on co-parenting.
How do you do it? Because, you know, your emotions get tied into all of it. It's like, I love him, I hate him, all that stuff is going through your mind, and then the kids oftentimes are, you know, they're seeing this.
They are, and understanding that divorce, especially in the beginning, it's a loss. It's a loss of a marriage. And so going through the grieving process is very typical. And feeling that sense of resentment and, you know, anger, it's natural for an adult, and to have, you know, conflict with your ex in the beginning especially, but it's really important to keep in mind that children are sponges. They're watching your every move.
Yes.
And they are looking at how you problem solve and handle situations. And so being positive, using positive language, keeping that open dialogue is the very first tip I always give families.
What kind of dialogue? What kind of positive words?
So basically, you want to make sure, being mindful of how you were talking about your ex. And in the beginning, it's sometimes, like I said, very difficult. And so there's some great programs out there, great apps, online programs that help the conversation and keep it more civil when you're not ready to be face to face.
Okay, don't say anything mean about daddy or mommy. You offer some great advice. Let's go ahead and start with committing to making co-parenting an open dialogue, which we just talked about, and then you say the key is consistency.
Consistency. You oftentimes, parents will, you know, that I work with will talk about behavior changes, and it's very typical, very natural, but consistency is key. Why? Because you're in two different households, and imagine what it's like for a child to be with one parent, and then midweek usually, right, that's when changes happen. It's not always 1 week with one parent and the next week with another. It's abruptly changes, and so helping with that transition, keeping consistency. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but something as simple as you know, homework. Where do I keep my things? How is my room set up?
So mom and dad have to be on the same page. Bedtime is at 9 o'clock at mom's and at dad's house. So
very consistent. Yeah. The reality is, but a half an hour off, it's okay, but just try to be as consistent as possible, because that'll just help your child.
You say don't try to outdo your ex by giving your kids more gifts so they love you.
Right. Guilt, it's again natural to feel guilty, but you do not want to play that game, because children are savvy.
Yeah.
And so really trying not to play into the guilt, really working with your ex on saying, you know, these are our limits, these are our budgets, you know, this is how we're going to do our rewards. Again, it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but you really want to be in the same kind of area. And it goes same with discipline and consequences as well.
Yeah, you're talking about rules, which goes with consistency. Talk about that.
So rules are important. You know, you used to be married, and so you two your parents working on the same challenges, and so that didn't change. And so try to keep that the same. So if you had same family rules, same guidelines with social media use, try to keep that. Don't try to abruptly change that. I mean, it really will help with that consistency.
And quickly, I do want to talk about your book that we have right here. Quickly address that. This is good for children starting at the age of 3.
It's a great book. I really wanted to create something for the especially early childhood ages. So as early as 3, it's Winnie Her Worries. It's a book I've written that has professional tips that I would use in any session with families at the end, and it really teaches kids at an early age how to cope. It's the greatest gift to give our children, is how to cope with stressors, and having a divorce is something that is stressful.
It's a loss.
Yes, it's a loss. It's stressful. Children worry. They wonder if it's because of them.
Okay.
And so this book goes through concrete ways of addressing some of those anxieties that children could have.
Where can we find this book?
It's on Amazon right now.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here
Thank
with us
you.
this morning. Some great advice. Heather, you know, as I said, sometimes it's hard, but as adults, we need to take a step back and realize that sometimes it's not just about us, it's about our children as well.
I think some parents, I mean, and I'm just as guilty of this as everybody else. You think your children are not affected, and they are by every decision that we make along the way. So great advice. Looking forward to seeing that book too.